Arriving to host a formal dinner party, only to realize your oven, microwave, and stovetop are completely shattered, leaves you to serve your guests a single packet of stale saltines on a silver platter.
Operating a modern NFL franchise requires a baseline level of functional machinery under center.
The 2026 Atlanta Falcons kicked off their multi-million-dollar training camp with an offense commanded by Jack Strand, an undrafted rookie from Division II Minnesota State Moorhead.
Opening a training camp forces a coaching staff to rely on a highly choreographed schedule of offensive installations.
We are utilizing reports today from ESPN, Pro Football Rumors, Cleveland.com, and the Falcons' official team site to decode the cascading front office disaster that led to the sudden evaporation of Atlanta's quarterback room.
Feeding the playbook to the roster in daily increments demands a professional quarterback capable of reading the defense and executing the pre-snap motions.
You walk into the Flowery Branch facility on day one expecting a professional football team, and instead you find a triage unit.
Grinding that installation process to a halt happens instantly when the quarterback cannot deliver the ball on time.
Head coach Kevin Stefanski stepped to the podium and announced franchise quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is suffering from back tightness.
Wide receivers cannot perfect their timing under those conditions.
Stefanski downplayed the issue as a mere flare-up that should resolve next week.
Biomechanical realities dictate the severity of a back injury for a quarterback.
Throwing a football with a locked-up back feels like trying to swing a golf club while wearing a straitjacket.
Transferring kinetic energy begins at the cleats, moves up through the hips, relies heavily on core rotation, and snaps through the shoulder.
You lose all your torque.
Acting as a physical handbrake, a tight back destroys that rotation.
That's velocity just drops completely.
Accuracy wavers, and the ball flutters.
Calling it a flare-up feels like an aggressive spin job.
Controlling the public relations narrative becomes the primary goal, while the medical staff scrambles behind closed doors.
They have to figure out why their star player cannot physically execute a throwing motion on the very first day of mandatory work.
Compounding that issue involves the second player on the depth chart.
Backup Michael Penix Jr. remains medically uncleared for 11-on-11 team drills.
Relegating a developing quarterback to 7-on-7s means he is rehearsing a Broadway play in his living room without ever stepping onto the actual stage.
He is still chained to those individual sessions while recovering from a partially torn ACL suffered last November.
Participating in a 7-on-7 drill simulates the sport of football in a completely sterile laboratory environment.
Keeping him out of live drills in late July feels like a massive flashing warning sign about his knee.
Standing in the pocket during a 7-on-7 involves 0 offensive linemen blocking and 0 defensive linemen rushing the passer.
It becomes just an elaborate game of catch.
Testing pure arm talent and route-running arithmetic works in that drill, but it fails to replicate actual football.
Introducing 300-pound human beings intent on inflicting physical harm changes the math entirely.
Managing a collapsing pocket and anticipating throwing lanes through a forest of helmets requires live 11-on-11 repetitions.
Stepping into throws knowing a violent collision is imminent just cannot be practiced in a sterile environment.
Throwing another variable into this situation reveals a much larger structural failure.
Compounding this massive void, veteran Trevor Siemian was abruptly released with a non-football injury designation.
Processing that transaction on the exact same morning your starter's back locks up represents catastrophic front office timing.
Jettisoning your veteran safety net makes 0 sense in that specific context.
General managers evaluate hundreds of disaster scenarios during the offseason.
I submit the Siemian release was already processed before the sun came up.
Building rosters to survive an ankle sprain in October or a concussion protocol in December falls under standard operating procedure.
The paperwork was filed with the league office. The general manager wiped his hands clean, and the Tagovailoa injury caught the coaching staff completely blind an hour later.
Drafting a contingency plan for your top 3 quarterbacks, evaporating simultaneously hours before the first whistle simply does not happen.
They walked onto the practice field believing they had a stable veteran to run the second-team offense.
Panic overrides logic in NFL front offices when structural contingencies fail.
Only to discover their starter could not physically bend over to tie his cleats.
Extending that logistical nightmare beyond the grass field ruins the entire afternoon schedule.
Film study sessions become completely hollow at that point.
Coaches possess 0 valuable tape to correct when the offense cannot even execute basic formation shifts.
The entire developmental track for the rookie class hits a brick wall.
Addressing an empty quarterback room forced the Falcons to smash the emergency glass and pull out Cooper Rush.
Relying on the 2025 version of Cooper Rush to save your training camp feels like finding a dusty spare tire in the trunk of a used car.
Carrying a wildly polarized resume, Rush enters his 10th NFL season,
It might get you to the next off-ramp, but driving at highway speeds guarantees a blowout.
proving to be a highly competent deputy to Dak Prescott from 2017 to 2024, established his reputation in Dallas.
He won 9 of his 14 starts, registering an 83.8 rating, 20 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions.
Contrasting that with his disastrous 2025 campaign requires examining his time with the Baltimore Ravens.
The Ravens handed him a 2-year, $12.2 million contract, only to watch him implode.
Covering for an injured Lamar Jackson in blowouts to the Texans and Rams exposed massive schematic flaws.
Rush went 34 of 52 for 303 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a dismal 48.8 passer rating before being banished to third string and ultimately cut.
Baltimore's offensive architecture demanded a dynamic scrambler.
Justify which version of Rush just walked into the Flowery Branch facility, because that 48.8 rating is horrifying.
Isolating Cooper Rush in a scheme built entirely around the gravitational pull of Lamar Jackson set him up for inevitable failure.
Opposing defenses must freeze when Jackson holds the football.
Dictating defensive movement relies on the constant threat of a 40-yard quarterback run.
So the Ravens' playbook relied on read options and designed quarterback draws.
Inserting a traditional static pocket passer who runs the 40-yard dash in over 5 seconds into that specific offense put a tractor engine inside a sports car body.
The opposing defenses simply ignored the threat of the quarterback run.
Pinning their ears back, those defenders abandoned their gap responsibilities and overwhelmed the offensive line.
You are telling me the Ravens paid $12 million for a
Yeah.
player who literally could not execute their playbook.
Generating a 48.8 passer rating resulted directly from a horrible marriage between scheme and player.
I need you to translate how the Atlanta Falcons scheme is going to hide those physical limitations.
Executing a wide zone rushing attack provides the foundation for Kevin Stefanski's offense.
Break down what a wide zone actually demands of a quarterback, because that sounds like a term coaches use to sound smarter than everybody else in the room.
Stepping laterally at the snap of the ball, the entire offensive line moves in unison toward the sideline,
The running back aims for the outside hip of the tight end.
forcing the defense to run horizontally across the field prevents massive gains on the ground.
The quarterback's job in this system centers entirely on deception.
Faking the handoff to the running back, the quarterback rolls out in the opposite direction.
He finds receivers running into the massive voids left by the linebackers who chase the fake run.
Mirroring the Dallas philosophy Rush executed for years makes this a schematic fit.
The scheme itself manufactures open throwing windows.
Keeping the quarterback clean happens naturally by constantly moving the launch point.
The Falcons do not need Cooper Rush to evade 3 defenders and throw across his body.
Taking the snap, executing a convincing fake, reading the high safety, and delivering the ball accurately fulfills his required duties.
Wait, pause on reading the high safety for a second.
Providing the decoder rink for the entire defensive coverage starts with the safeties.
Imagine you were trying to explain defensive secondary alignments to a high school player.
Standing deep in the middle of the field, a single safety indicates a cover 1 or cover 3 defense.
What is that high safety telling the quarterback before the ball is even snapped?
Protecting the middle of the field leaves the sidelines incredibly vulnerable to outside throws.
And what happens when there are 2 guys back there?
Standing deep together, 2 safeties indicate a cover 2 or cover 4 defense,
Meaning the deep halves of the field are capped.
forcing the quarterback to throw underneath into the linebacker zones becomes the defense's goal.
A veteran like Cooper Rush makes this calculation before the center even snaps the ball.
Knowing exactly where the ball should go based on the safety's shoe placement accelerates his processing speed.
The physical act of throwing the ball becomes secondary to the mental processing of the defense.
Banking on his brain instead of his arm gives the Falcons a functional practice environment.
The quarterback crisis functions as a glaring neon sign, pointing to a much broader durability crisis infecting the entire Falcons roster.
Examining the injury report reveals a staggering amount of inactive talent.
The front office shoved 4 key players onto the active, physically unable to perform list immediately.
Shelving right tackle Jawan Taylor and defensive back Billy Bowman Jr. removes 2 critical starters.
Outside linebacker D'Angelo Malone and linebacker Troy Anderson are also parked on that PUP list.
Slapping defensive linemen Zach Harrison and Antonio Thompson with active football injury designations further decimates the depth chart.
Confronted with a completely shattered roster, Coach Stefanski joked that team president Matt Ryan would not be taking snaps.
Offering the defense a casual dismissal by stating, "This is the NFL, you can't predict what's coming," ignores the reality of modern sports science.
NFL franchises spend millions of dollars attempting to purchase the illusion of control.
Employing biomechanical analysts, sleep specialists, and hydration trackers aims specifically to mitigate soft tissue injuries.
Every ounce of food consumed in the building is weighed and measured.
Tracking every practice step with GPS monitors sewn into the shoulder pads provides endless data streams.
When a roster experiences this sheer volume of physical breakdown before full contact practices even begin, alarms should be ringing.
Taking accountability for failing to properly prepare the athletes falls directly on the medical staff when
Hold on. ACL tears and non-football injuries cannot be blamed on the strength coaches.
identifying the deliberate pattern of risk acquisition chosen by the general manager explains the broader injury report.
Michael Penix Jr., suffering structural knee damage during a live game last November, falls entirely outside the purview of the current training staff.
Actively acquiring and relying upon players with extensive documented injury histories guarantees these exact situations.
You cannot hold a sleeve specialist responsible for an offensive lineman getting rolled up on in a pile.
Building a roster heavily dependent on athletes currently navigating complex medical rehabilitations creates a massive vulnerability.
Non-football injuries, by definition, occur away from the facility.
Prioritizing name value and theoretical potential over physical reliability defines this specific roster construction strategy.
You cannot blame the sports science department for an athlete twisting his ankle on a jet ski in July or dropping a dumbbell on his foot in his home garage.
Inheriting the medical profiles the general manager signs puts the training staff in an impossible position.
You are buying distressed properties and acting surprised when the roof caves in.
Building a sturdy house on a crumbling foundation remains impossible, regardless of how advanced the contractor's tools are.
The regular season approaches, regardless of the medical charts.
Establishing the timing and evaluating the roster now rests entirely on the shoulders of Cooper Rush and Jack Strand.
The coaching staff is gambling heavily on Tagovailoa's back spasms subsiding by next week.
Waiting for Penix to cross the final medical hurdles for his surgically repaired knee leaves the second-team offense in limbo.
Every practice snap taken by Jack Strand represents a snap stolen from the primary offense's preparation.
Evaluating a complex offensive scheme using a quarterback who signed his contract hours ago forces a brutal calculus.
They are running drills with a rookie who played Division II football just last autumn.
Deciding which young wide receivers make the final 53-man roster becomes a dangerous guessing game under these conditions.
A receiver might run a flawless route, create 3 yards of separation, and defeat the cornerback.
Coaches will never see the result of that flawless route because the pass arrives 2 seconds late or sails into the bleachers.
The evaluation process for 50 other men is compromised by the failure at one specific position.
Wasting an entire block of training camp evaluations damages the bottom half of the roster permanently.
NFL franchises are valued in the billions, employing legions of analysts, sports scientists, and roster architects.
Constructing massive analytical departments provides endless spreadsheets but cannot heal a lumbar spine.
A single player experiencing a tight back can instantly render a team completely non-functional, exposing the entire operation as a fragile house of cards waiting for a stiff breeze. Goodbye.